All right. Holy cow. Today is getting out from underneath me. I'm super busy right now, guys. But I do have quite a few requests for various layouts to review. So this is the RMPL Event 2 layout review video, or the Rocky Mountain Paintball League Event 2. I'm going to go over this somewhat quickly if I can, probably within 30 minutes. I do have another layout that people want me to review, the CPXL, but I don't know when I'll be able to get to that. I'll probably be able to do it tomorrow. But I've got to get caught up in work, and then I've got to prep for the Ronnie D's on stream. So I'm hoping that I can do this, quickly and concisely and kind of walk you guys through my process. I won't be able to give it as much of a deep dive as I do the NXL events, just because I want to spend as much time and attention on that as I can. But in either case, we can still have a pretty good stream here. So I'm going to go ahead and get started right away. Let's see. Where am I? Here we go. And you are absolutely welcome, Nick. Welcome. Obviously, if you've got teammates, buddies, whatever, feel free to share it with them. I know there's more people in the chat that will probably play in this event, but I am going to do this, like I said, somewhat quickly, so I got a lot of work I got to do. So all right, first things first, as always, I haven't seen this layout yet, so I have no idea what it's going to look like. But the first thing I like to do is draw the zones. So let's see. I would probably draw this here, even though it's kind of weird. I would probably draw this here. This one's tricky. But I would probably draw it here. Obviously, I could draw it closer to the Doritos. Well, let's see. Actually, yeah, let me redo that. So I'm going to draw this zone here. I'm going to draw this zone here. And I'm going to draw this zone here, which then should give me my number 2 zone. Very likely. So in this case, this would be Iowa. This would be Nevada. This would be Texas, Oklahoma, Arizona. Is how you would do that. So this again tells us where we would likely find each player on the field in a standard breakout. So we'd likely find the Dorito 1 guy somewhere in this zone, Dorito 2 guy somewhere in this zone, the home guy here, the number 2 on the snake, and the number 1 on the snake. Obviously, it's possible for there to be variations of this, but it's still just kind of helpful to take a look at that. It's a very, very weird layout. That's the first thing I'm going to say. But then the next thing I like to do is check out the back line, as you guys know. So running across the back line, there's obviously this huge channel here that's pretty big. Running further out, you have this here and a lot of heads up stuff, and that's a pretty big gap for heads up. This is actually, if there's any running and gunning you want to practice for this event, it would definitely be that you'd set up a target on the right side of that to be shooting for the dude, either going into the snake or going to the corner. That snake shot, running and gunning, is pretty easy, I would say. It doesn't look very difficult. We keep going out, looking at it. I feel the can on the snake side would be included in the Arizona zone. Well, the problem is that if the can is included in the Arizona zone, where does the number 2 go? I agree that it probably could be. But the problem is that Arizona is meant to signify that the snake is clear more than anything else. And so if there's a guy in the can and he's the widest dude, but I can't say Arizona because of that, then it doesn't give my snake guy the confidence that there's nobody in the snake specifically, right? So that's kind of the reason why I drew the line there. It very well may be that the snake 1 might pull up short to this can every time, but it's also okay that if in a default layout, and default breakout, you would say Arizona from the within the first few seconds of the point. That's totally okay too. There's some layouts that are like that. That actually happens more on the Doritos side than anything. But getting into the snake corner, you don't have any true shots, but that is definitely a blind shot over those juice boxes. You have a very interesting gap here to shoot and challenge the snake from the corner, which makes that a very strong bunker. You have a pretty decent wrap. Sorry, 1 second. Change it to this. Okay. So, what was my work? Let me get it back here. Okay. So you have a very interesting shot in this little corner here. You can obviously challenge that guy. You could probably drop some shots over to the wedge in the back center, but I would think that you're pretty safe from that. So you have kind of like 3 channels. You've got this drop shot here, which you'd have to be standing tall. You've got this challenge here, probably something to the effect here, and something over here in this can. But you also have a really good filter up to the snake. If they go, so for example, if they go to the corner, and the only guy that's stopping you is this dude right here, if you can get this guy to look on the inside of the field, you are clear for takeoff. You're clear to run to any one of these, or you could dive here if you wanted. As long as you went low. But all you'd have to do is blind out. Again, this is early in the game. All you have to do is blind out the guy in front of you while keeping an eye on the can guy. It's a long run to get to the 50, so I'm not suggesting that you do that. But again, if that can guy looks on the inside of the field, you're clear for takeoff. This also means that that can guy is like a very important bunker to stay heads up and not get baited into looking on the inside of the field, which if they were to, they have pretty decent shots, which is tough because obviously with decent shots, you think, oh, I need to look cross. But if you do look cross, you stop that run because this guy here, he could probably see it actually, depending on what the layout looks like. The problem is if he goes this way, your shot isn't there because this guy's going to be low in the snake before you could ever see him. I don't know if you'd even bother stopping here. This is a great spot for the number 2 to be. For the number 2 on the snake side, this is a really good spot to be because you can obviously watch over your teammate pretty decently, protect them pretty good from being run down. You have some sort of inside shots on this juice box, which we'll take a look at here in a second. I would suspect that shooting this guy would make him feel pretty. He'd have to get pretty tight into his bunker. You have some highway moves in here, which is pretty interesting. So if, for example, there isn't anybody in the snake, or there isn't anybody in this can, and let's say the only people that are here are a dude, like a guy here, and maybe somebody somewhere in the snake, you could do a highway move. Because, like, who's going to look at you from here, right? The juice box, he's not going to look at you without you knowing. If you come up here, some guy in the middle is going to cause a problem. Some guy in the middle right here might cause a problem. If this guy's looking at you this way, I'm not sure why he would. But, like, the assumption that I always make is that people on the outer edges of the field are always going to be looking heads up. So if you come here, I mean, you obviously don't want to play the pin, but you also could, come, oh, this bunker sucks to go here. Yeah, honestly, I mean, it's still there. You could absolutely, your biggest issue is going to be the wedge. Your biggest issue is going to be this guy. But you could even, like, keep blinding him out and get here and maybe dig out the snake guy. This is like a super open spot, but like you could probably run the snake guy down right here before this wedge guy would even know. But it's probably just a 1-for-1 at that point. So anyway, probably not a great move to make. You have an inside route that'll get you up to here, which definitely is a solid bunker to hold a gap from. So if you kill the snake runner and their widest guy is the can, this is a great follow-up because you can't... Well, you could actually just stay here if you wanted. If you wanted to stay here and shoot that zone, you could. What advantage do you have going here? You're closer. Much closer. I mean, you can directly shoot at this guy instead of just trying to hold the gap without knowing where he's at. So there's an advantage to that. You could wrap on the home. Put some shots here. Doing that. And then... I don't know. It honestly is a lot safer. If you are here and your front guys in the snake, it's much safer to just kind of chill here and shoot that shot. Big gaps from the home. Big gaps over in the Dorito corner. I would suspect that that's a pretty impossible run to survive. If you're playing against a team who can hit any kind of shot, that's going to be a really hard shot. I wouldn't even bother shooting this. There's obviously over-the-top shots. What I would probably do is if I was the home guy shooting Dorito away, I would put 3 balls in this gap right here, low to the bottom left of that, and then I would fan out and shoot this corner. The challenge you'll have to be aware of, or the trick you'll have to be aware of, is as you're shooting this shot, if you're not applying any pressure here, then this guy, the number 2 or whoever this dude is, could take an inside route that you wouldn't be able to react to in time, which could put them at as far up as this bunker, right? Or this bunker. And that would be kind of awkward. As far as the snake side is concerned, you have this gap, which if you were to shoot that, you're trying to kill the number 2, or you have this gap, which you're trying to kill a snake runner. So I would probably suspect that if you have this guy running and gunning and shooting this shot right here, you could have your home guy try to shoot for the number 2 and then fan out, right? So put your first three to four balls right here, or just, you know, maybe 5, and then fan out, depending on if you saw a runner or not. But I still think that your better chances of killing anybody from this position is probably that guy. You also put a lot of pressure on any sort of like up the middle moves to this bunker, right? Because if you stay dedicated on that zone, you at least know you have a guy who's running out to this can shooting heads up. As far as Doritos side is concerned, I wouldn't shoot anything cross from this bunker. See, that's the thing. Like, nobody is gonna look this way for that up the highway move. Nobody's gonna do that unless you're just trying to like see how things are going on the snake side. Nobody's gonna shoot this gap right here, I would suspect. Hold on, this song is not it. Let's do this. Okay, sweet. So, as far as this is concerned, that's a huge gap, obviously, but I'm just trying to see. Got a heads up battle, which is kind of awkward, but it is easily beatable. The problem is that in order to blind out your guy, you're exposing yourself to this dude pretty hard with a big gap up the center. If you decided to take the safer route, this is much safer. So if you want to do something cheeky up the center on the Dorito side as the number 2, the easy route to do would be to just blind out the guy and look towards Dorito way. And this is actually a really decent shot to hold the guy from, to stop the number 1 from moving. If you wanted to get even cheekier and come here, that's actually really good. So what you could do, so if, for example, you're here and you either tiger... Yeah, if you're here and you tiger this guy, or, you know, you hear the tiger the Dorito 1, and you check this guy off really quickly and just start shooting paint to prevent him from moving, your follow-up shot could very easily be to come here and set a trap and just sit here and stare. Because you don't actually have to shoot now. You can just react to him. As long as nobody comes up the middle to dig you out, you can sit here and stare at this all day. You just have to make sure your front Dorito guy doesn't die. Because if he dies in this situation, you are absolutely screwed. The only way that you're not is if the home guy is the one that fills out. So if, for example, you did like a breakout where you went here, and let's say here, and you tiger this dude. Let's say you go here and that's when you tiger him. Well, as long as you keep this guy pinned and you move here, well, now you and your home guy are kind of in the same zone or channel, assuming your home guy hasn't moved, which would mean that he would need to backpedal and help push this side together, and you essentially become the number 3 and just bait that gap. So that would have to, I mean, that's a play that's not hard to make. It would just have to be that your home guy is aware of where your number 2 on the Dorito side is. If you go up to this bunker, you could shoot at the corner, but the corner is actually going to dig you out more than you're going to kill the corner. If you come here and you shoot the corner guy because he's high, you have to kill that guy. Otherwise, if you crouch low, you're going to be living behind your gun. The guy can't be any farther than this Dorito for you to not be absolutely boned by making that move. So that's something to be aware of. But if you do kill the guy in front of you, you now have this huge gap, these huge gaps that you can wrap this way on to control from. So this is, again, like, I usually look at the center Dorito push moves or like the center snake push moves as ways to punish your opponents for dying on the wide or dying out wide. So my suggestion is always, especially in like anything lower than Division 2 or even Division 2, my suggestion is always just go wide for the most part. There's some layouts where that'll be a little different, but if you tiger their front guy as the number 2, you should probably just punch this way, because then you can start chopping up the zones much closer and surprise people. But you just have to make sure that your front Dorito guy is like very good at surviving, because if their survivability is bad, then those plays are gonna get punished really easily, and you're always safe to just push outside, right? Here in the Dorito 1, you have a pretty nuts gap to move through. I don't know what I'm trying to say. You have this heads up, which sucks, and then you have this Aztec, which you have to wrap on, and you also have the can that could be a problem. So you have quite a few bunkers that can see you in this position, which really is just a matter of head checking and seeing what's going on and getting high and low. You could always come on the inside and see if this guy at the can is here, and that much you can put together yourself, but you don't know if there's a guy in the Aztec. You have to use teammates to figure out if there's a guy there, or you have to head check low or something to see. It's probably not going to be the case that if there's somebody in this can that there's going to be somebody in the Aztec as well. It's probably not going to be the case, or at least if they are, they're probably not going to be looking your way. It might be that there's a guy that goes to the can and looks here or something, but I wouldn't suspect that. Like, for example, if you see a guy in the can, it's probably not a guy in the Aztec, and vice versa, right? That's what I would think is a Dorito 1. It's always possible, but if you go to the corner now, you have huge shots, huge cross-field shots. That's a very long shot, though, but that shot does exist to just put pressure on your opponents. You have this gap to shoot. I wouldn't dedicate any amount of time to doing that, but you also have this shot that you can help your teammate with if you get to the corner somehow and he's still stuck. Or if you took the corner off the break, like if you ran to this corner right here and then your other breakout was a guy right here, then you could certainly shoot at that Aztec to help your teammate get here and then even move further up to the Dorito as you're shooting this way. So that's an option. The problem is this guy out here has to take the job of stopping this dude very quickly. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic. You've got a kind of a crisscross sort of scenario where you're helping each other to try and push up the field. So that's interesting. That's a cool Dorito dynamic. If we move up to this Dorito 2, huge gaps again, huge gaps. My suggestion, I mean, there's not a kill shot here, but my suggestion probably would be that as you move up the Dorito side, keep your head down range and inside the field, and keep your gun up, because this is one of those situations where you don't want to get baited into holding a cross shot zone or whatever. Like, you don't want to be the Dorito 2 guy sitting and staring at this zone because you think you're going to kill somebody, because then you're just conceding a lot of Dorito ground. But it's also one of those where if you keep your gun up, you might just shoot like 3 to 5 balls somewhere in this gap and then continue playing heads up and then go from there, right? You never know. That would be my suggestion. When you get here, the Dorito can still stop you. Is that the Dorito 1? Sorry, I keep doing that. Is that the Dorito 1? It is. Wow. Okay, so if you take the ground before they do, they actually have a chance to respond. And if they do, you guys can't see each other. But if they don't respond, this guy can actually hold you. So I'm not sure if you need to feel any sort of pressure to get to the Dorito 2 really quickly. Super wide open, yeah. But like, look at it this way. If I'm a Dorito 1 guy, and I know that there's a lot of shots from the middle that could kill me as I try to get to the Dorito 2. And even if I get to the Dorito 2, I have the same guy that I was fighting who can now still see me. I don't know if I would care to get to the Dorito 2 like super quickly. You obviously, getting from the Dorito 2 to the Dorito 3 is what's going to cause big problems for them. But I would just play this. I would play this Dorito 1 to Dorito 2 move slowly, unless they are explosively getting into the Dorito 3 and you can't do anything to stop it for some reason. But like, okay, so what? The guy gets to the Dorito 2 and now I'm fighting him from this position and I'm still super safe, right? And if your teammate gets to the corner in your Dorito 1 and they're in that Dorito 2, well, now your teammate here, all he has to do is check off this guy, right? And assuming nobody in the middle's looking at them, and this guy's got free run to the 40 or to the 50. So I would suspect that you need to get to that corner. This corner opens up a lot of potential for you, and I would probably avoid punch. Yeah, I would say don't punch this way unless you get a tiger out of the wide side of the Doritos, but try to get to this corner as quickly as you can and get set up in these 2 bunkers, because now you've got a lot of options. You can either have this guy explode after you do get a tiger, or you can, if you still are matched up and you haven't gotten a tiger, this guy can just hold the wide dude while you push up this way, and he looks up the middle for any eyes that are looking at him. That's what I would do. Oh, hello. Okay, so let's say you kill... See, like, look at this huge gap, right? I mean, again, you can bet that nobody's going to be looking at you from this angle or from this angle. That's just not going to be a thing. But that does mean that you can kill this dude and this dude as soon as you get to Dorito 3. which means that the danger move. So if your team is calling this Dorito 3, that is the oh shoot bunker. That's the bunker that these guys need to start playing super tight, and that this guy might die and this guy might die. This guy could probably put some pressure back, but that Dorito 2 to Dorito 3 gap is big, but that's the one that you'd have to worry about. So depending on, normally in situations like this field will naturally slow down teams that are very competitively even with each other. If teams are very even, then this will be a super slow Dorito side. But if one team is much better than the other, this is going to be a very fast Dorito side with points that end very quickly. Because as soon as you get to this Dorito 3, you have 2, maybe 3 kills guaranteed. If this can isn't looking at you, which I don't know why they wouldn't be. That guy's dead. This guy's dead. That guy's very likely dead. And this dude's super dead in the tower. So that's 3, maybe 4 kills from the Dorito 3. Right? You get up to the 50 now. And you've got pressure on the home guy. Again, assuming he's not looking at you. This guy's super dead. Even more dead than he was before. This guy's definitely dead. You've got pressure on the middle guy, but he could still survive. You can't really see anything snake. That's not true. You could see the snake too. Just kidding. That snake too could kill you. So if you're the snake 2 guy, you need to be listening for Dorito 3. If you hear Dorito 3, you might want to just stare here for a second and see if you can just shoot some paint here, because that's gonna surprise him. And I bet you this guy's gonna come here and shoot that Dorito 2 shot right away. As far as heads up, then you've got a pretty basic heads up problem. To be honest, a lot of moves can be equalized in this Dorito, it looks like, if this guy challenges this dude or this dude. Those are very easy shots. Actually, can the other guy see him? Yeah, he can. Okay. So like this is a less equalized shot for this Dorito guy, but it honestly seems like your biggest reward for getting up the Dorito side is killing the snake side, which is, you know, often the case. But even at the 50, this guy has got a really good shot on you. So I would suspect that you should do most of your damage from the Dorito 3 and just hang out for a minute, because you don't need to go to this wedge, I would suspect. At least it doesn't look like it. So that's interesting. But otherwise, anything else is pretty obvious. As far as the Doritos are concerned, for what I would practice, I think you can. This is a pretty varied corner run. Obviously, you've got the home guy who's gonna absolutely blast you, but you could probably try running and gunning for a little bit. But at practice, I would practice running and gunning, and then at the tournament, be prepared to run with your gun down if you're gonna try to make it. I would also think that you could, because the corner is so strong, and these angles that people are going to be shooting from the home to the Dorito or to the corner are large enough differences that that's where a lot of your variation is going to be. So what I would suspect is you're going to send your number 2 here, and you're going to send your number 1 to these 2 bunkers, and his decision on whether or not he goes here or here is really based on where he thinks they're going to shoot. And obviously you can change it up by how you're lining up, if you're in a running position or a gunning position, but that's going to be a lot of how the front player survives, right? And it might be that this Dorito 1 is super safe, actually. Oh yeah, that Dorito 1 run is guaranteed, we said. Yeah. So this Dorito 1 is super free. So if you're dying in the corner, so that's really what it is. Your risk is to the 2 or to the corner. Those are the 2 risk bunkers. Sorry, I'm not meaning to draw so much, but this is safe, risk. And you can decide to do those risks based on how the points are going so far. But I think you could actually easily take the Dorito 2 off break. And the advantage of doing that is that if you take the Dorito 2 off break and they take the Dorito 1, and you didn't have to do this like long prolonged gunfight to get here, now this is just like a straight up gun heads up, right? But you're in a much more threatening position to them if you win that gunfight, because now you didn't have to win a 1v1 that was equal and you got to a position where you still have to 1v1. Now if they lose that first 1v1 snap battle, you're all of a sudden in that Dorito 3 and you're killing their snake side. So I would suspect that teams are going to try to get to this Dorito 2 as many points as they can, because that's how you're going to open up the point, and then you're going to come up with plays to stop that. Would it be worth shooting a blind shot into the snake gap over the brick while going to the D1? No, that's too cross. That's too cross field. What you could do, if you suspect that they're... Well, actually, you've got your home guy who... If your home guy's looking the Dorito way and shooting this gap and essentially conceding the Dorito 1, then what I would say you should do is just run and dive into the Dorito and then stand up and shoot right here for a second. Just see if they do any sort of delayed pushes, or just put pressure here. You could do it running and gunning. I suspect that you could get a random kill or two, but anytime you get more than, like, anytime you're shooting more than the center as you're running out, like, so for example, anytime you're running this way and you're shooting more than what you would be at the home, so you're shooting, like, let's say over here. Well, I'll just draw this gap. This side is going to be super hard to hit because of them running and you running, that it would be more worth it to just run with your gun down and ensure you survive that gap and that run than it would be to try and lob some kind of weird lucky shot. Because to shoot that shot like this cross, that is a very harsh angle for you to hit. You almost have to be shooting this direction for your paint to land here, and this direction for your paint to land here, and that's such a harsh angle that it's almost not worth it. But you could try. You could certainly try and see, because that run is super safe. Nobody's going to shoot you. I mean, there is one gap right here, but I don't think the home guy is going to stay at the box and do that. It's possible. It's possible, but, like, look at that gap from this perspective, right? Like, this would be the gap. If I were to shoot the Dorito runner, who isn't really running very fast, this is the gap I'd have to hit. And that's just right off to the start box, you know what I mean? You're hitting the number 2 guy, if anything, not the number 1. To go into the snake then really quick. So we said that there's a decent cross shot on the corner, which might be worth it. If you're the number 2 on the snake, I wouldn't do this as the number 1. But if you're the number 2 in the snake and you just got to this wedge, I'd maybe look at the corner and see if you can shoot a pack or a foot. And then I would, you know, maybe 5-10 balls at most. Then I'd play heads up. This is like whack-a-mole for sure in the snake. You've obviously got this challenge that's going to be a problem, but it's super easily beat. If you beat this guy, you can instantly dive in and nobody's going to see you. So getting into the snake 2 is not going to be a problem. And in fact, even in the snake 2, you can actually threaten or kill the Dorito 3 that was a problem. So the snake 2's job is to definitely put pressure on the Doritos if you hear that they're past the Dorito 1. Because obviously if they're in the Dorito 2, you can't see them, but you could start putting paint here. You just can't stay dedicated on it. That's the tricky part as the snake. Always. That's always the snake. Snake's tricky aspect. So here, here you obviously have a pretty big gap that you have to beat to get up to the snake 50. So you have these 2 bunkers here that are going to be a big problem. You have this gap too, which, so in theory they could be in 4 different places, right? They could be either here, 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 or here to get this gap. Obviously, 4 people aren't going to be looking at you. There might be 2, however. You know, it's very possible that this guy and maybe this guy could be looking at you. But otherwise, if you beat that, obviously the 50, you've got a huge gap. You've got a huge gap to shoot them on their way, but you can't actually see the 50 once he gets there, which is interesting. If you back off, this is a weird thing. This whole spot right here is super weird. This is a really uncomfortable spot. What I would suggest you do if you have a private field is I would play this snake battle. So I would have somebody on the Dorito side, maybe the Dorito 2 or 3. It could be a 3v3. And what I would do is I would put a guy in the corner and I'd put a guy here. So on one team, I would put a dude here, and somewhere on the Doritos. I don't know where they could challenge this guy. And I would put a dude here. And let's see. I'd put a guy here, and maybe like here or something. It's a lopsided 3v3, but these guys have positioning on the snake and these guys have positioning on the Doritos, and I would play that out and see how that plays. Because this dude needs to get really comfortable with being super close to this guy and being very, very uncomfortable. Because like anytime I look at stuff like this, the only thing I can say is like, well, obviously you can see this dude and this dude can see you, and you're so close that if you don't snap that, you're gonna die. You obviously have a tape battle, you have a wrap. Like this is all just rundown city, right? That's all this is. If you take the inside route, which I wouldn't necessarily suggest, but if you take this gap right here for a second, you can shoot the Dorito guy. You can definitely shoot the Aztec if he's not looking your way, and assuming the home guy's not there. Even if the home guy's there and somebody's looking opposite, you could always do that and then stand up and run this dude down. So what I would say is just be very aware of this highway. This highway is quite scary for when people aren't looking. So like your home guy is going to be the easiest one to stop any of these kind of moves, even if they just like instinctively switch the directions they're looking. But if you know that you kill the home guy, if you say Tiger the home or Tiger the whatever that bunker is, then that is your cue as a front guy to start thinking about how you can get creative, right? Especially in problems that are so close like this, so danger close. Try to think of what would be the most surprising thing to do, and it might be to play this gap, take one guy out on the Doritos, and then run somebody else down and get a 2-for-1, right? Hopefully your team can capitalize on that afterwards, but that would be my suggestion. As far as up the middle's concerned, then we're almost about done here. So if I were to look up the middle, you obviously have those gaps that we looked at, but if I run straight up the middle, which it looks like the more common route would be to take it on the Doritos side. So if you're the home guy and you know that they're getting up to that 50 brick every time, the shot that I would shoot is on the Doritos side up the center right here. Because that's the route I would take, right? You obviously have huge gaps. You can run and gun. So if you're having a hard time, so like let's say for example their Dorito 1 player is better than your Dorito 1 player, or for whatever reason they're getting to the Dorito 50 or the Dorito 3 and they're killing your snake side. One of the things I would do in response to that is I would send my home guy up the middle and shooting this direction to try and kill the Dorito runner, because that move is not free if you make that play from the very beginning, right? It's still going to probably be a hard shot, but if you get here quickly, you have a second or two where you could clip him. But otherwise, if you get here and then the dude either breaks out slowly, like maybe he stands the box, you can kill him there, or he's not a threat to you from this position, and so you obviously can't see the Doritos right now. If you come to the snake side, you can't do anything to the snake. So what is this bunker good for? It's a leapfrog bunker, right? I would move from this position. I would check off the home. I would look at the home and I'd look snake way. I'd check it off if he's not looking at my way. If he's not looking at me, then you could either decide to stay here for a second and kill this dude because he's going to slow peek or whatever. And if you do, then you go here and bait the Doritos. Otherwise, if you see here, he's looking snake way, he's dedicated to snake, I would give that up and I would come here. And now look at this interesting problem. If this guy is still in the Dorito 1, all you have is a one-on-one. Okay, we established that the reason that you look this way, here, let me zoom out for a second. So if in a breakout you go to the 50 looking this way trying to kill the Dorito and you don't, so now they're here, oh excuse me, they're here, here, and here. Well, if you get here in response to that, this guy can't see you because of this blind, and all you really have is this 1v1 so long as this guy was still looking snake way. Okay, which means that if this dude is still looking wide towards the cross, you're free to go here. And now you've got insane kill potential on the snake. So if I were to make this move, I would look here, check this guy off, look at the home, and then I would keep blinding the Doritos, and I'd come here and I'd look for a second. You're gonna kill a pack here. You're definitely gonna kill anybody who's in this god, or excuse me, in the Cobra, the snake corner. You're not gonna see anybody in the snake, but you're just looking for one quick kill, and then you're gonna get really low right here. Okay, your hope is that the snake guy doesn't find you, but if you stay here for a second and nobody knew where that shot came from, you could definitely clip a hopper. This might be a weird dig out. That guy might take a little while, but you don't want this guy to know that you're here. As soon as this guy finds out that you're in this position, you have to challenge him. You have to look on the inside and try to headshot, straight up gun battle him to his death, or there's always the possibility that you could pick off the home guy in some kind of weird angle, depending on what the layout looks like online or at the tournament. But otherwise, if you're here for a second and this guy has not either seen you or nothing is produced from this move, I would just honestly run down. I would blind out this center guy right here, and I'd keep running down, and I'd shoot the home. I'd shoot the home first, and then I'd come here and I'd shoot the Doritos, and then I'd come here and I'd shoot this guy, and then turn around and just in the back wherever the snake guy is. That to me is a very, very dangerous route to high level teams. So again, that route is coming up here. If you don't kill the Doritos, Like, if they don't even run past this zone, you don't have to leave here. If their widest guy on the Doritos is here, you don't have to leave the middle. But if they left the middle, you need to get here, and then you can bait this for a second. Or rather, excuse me, you can challenge this dude. And if you don't kill this guy, or he doesn't know you're there, come here, bait this for a second. If that doesn't produce anything, then do that move. Or let me just draw that. That's what I would do. That's a very strong move. Obviously, the middle guy is going to be a problem if he's looking your way. This move does not work if the home guy is looking the Dorito way, but if he's looking snake way, that move works. Okay. All right, we looked at the Doritos. We looked at the snake briefly. We looked at the middle as well. Do you have any questions or any angles you want me to look at before we finish? That's about as much time as I'm able to give to it. This honestly is a pretty open field. The key to me would just be that this is a super safe bunker, so what you're risking really and just figuring out, like, essentially testing your opponents is these two moves here. And if you are dying, you can always pull up short, right? The next thing is you want to get your primary bunker you're trying to get to is this Dorito 3. You do not need to get to the 50. You're actually a little less safe if you get to the 50. Be mindful of what shots can see you on the snake side, because we did establish the snake 2 can see the Dorito 3. So if you do make this move to the Dorito 3, you have to do it quick and low, right? The mistake that people will make in the Doritos is that they'll make this move with their gun up, but you should absolutely be diving to make this move. And if you do, the snake is not going to be a problem. But your objective is to get to to the Dorito 3 on the Dorito side and this corner. Your objective on the snake would probably just be to get to here at the very least and get to this corner. And then your middle guy can do a lot. After that, I would probably avoid this bunker as much as you can, unless, again, you have killed somebody. If the widest guy on the snake side is this can or more shallow, you can make that move up to here. But otherwise, I don't think that's a great bunker because the snake is pressuring you like crazy, and you have a blind gap that's very big, granted, on the Dorito side, but that gap can already be covered in so many other ways, right? There's so many other shots that you can get on the Doritos without having to do any sort of weird cross shots, because sometimes layouts are like that, right? I would do, if anything, I would use this as a leapfrog to get here. The one thing we didn't see really quickly is whether or not the brick does anything to the snake. Okay, if you're having a problem with the Doritos, you could make that route. If you're having a problem with the snake getting to the 50 or even the snake 2, the 50, you could definitely come here and watch this gap. I just really don't know how common it's going to be for people to take this bunker. Because, like, when you get here, what do you see from the inside in this gap? If you stand up, you can shoot the can, right? You can shoot that can, which is pretty good. I'll give it that. You can challenge the wedge, but this is a very, very risky challenge. That's like a 50-50, if not a 40-60 for them, right? Otherwise, why go to the 50? If you go to the 50 on the inside, you're super, super exposed to the Doritos. So, like, I don't really see anybody going to the 50 unless the widest guy is killed. So, for example, if you lose your corner or anybody in the snake, they're going to go to the 50 for sure. And in which case, that's how you would bait that as the number 3. So if you've got a guy over here and you're as the number 3, you pushed up to the middle, that would be a great gap to hold. So that's something you can do. But that is it. That's it. So let me know what questions you got real quick, and then I'm going to end the stream. How long have we been streaming? By the way, Zach Woollever, sorry, I don't for some reason hear the notifications for the stream, but thank you for the sub, man. I appreciate it. Oh, and thank you to PB Ninja and Eric Lewison for the membership re-ups. Thank you guys. I really appreciate that. Got a lot of more subscribers who've come in recently too, so I appreciate you doing this for me. I'll see you later tonight for the main stream. Sounds good, buddy. Have a good one. Thank you.